Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? We're tackling philosophy today.
Oh, yeah, philosophy.
And before you think, whoa, too abstract for me.
Right, like dusty old books.
Exactly, trust me on this one.
This is gonna be good.
It's going to be fascinating
Yeah.
because we're going beyond the stereotypes here. We're uncovering how these ideas, these big questions,
Mhm.
actually shaped the world we live in.
Exactly. I think what people miss is that philosophy
Yeah.
at its core. It's really about asking these big fundamental questions that humans have always grappled with.
Right, the ones that keep you up at night. Like,
Yeah,
what is the meaning of life?
exactly.
Where do we come from? What happens after we die?
Uh,
It's literally the love of wisdom in action.
Yes.
But you know me. I
Yeah.
like my examples concrete.
Yeah.
So imagine this, a world without democracy.
Oh, wow.
Mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
But that very idea, that citizens should have a say, that came from centuries of philosophical debate,
Mm.
sparked by these ancient Greek thinkers.
It's fascinating, and what's even more interesting is these weren't just, you know, abstract musings. Take Socrates, for example. He believed so strongly in the power of reason and questioning everything
Oh, yeah.
that he was sentenced to death for it by the Athenian state.
Wow.
Talk about high stakes.
They really live their philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've tossed this word philosophy around, but what does it actually mean?
So it's like a framework for exploring these big questions that we talked about. Existence, knowledge, values, reason.
Right.
Think of the most mind-boggling what-ifs about life, the universe, and everything.
Yeah.
That's philosophy's playground.
It's not just one big blob of ideas, right?
Hmm.
There are different branches like ethics, logic,
Yeah.
and metaphysics. That one always sounds a little intimidating.
Metaphysics, it can be. It dives into the very nature of reality.
Whoa.
Think about it. Are your thoughts as real as, say, the chair you're sitting on?
Ooh.
That's a metaphysical question.
That makes my brain hurt in a good way.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though. The word philosophy itself, it comes from the Greek words for love and wisdom,
Right.
Philo and Sophia. It's like they knew this stuff was both intellectually challenging
Absolutely.
and deeply fulfilling.
Very much so at the same time.
And what's even more amazing is how these ancient questions are still being debated in modern fields. Think about, the ethics of artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Are we creating machines that can think for themselves?
Yeah.
Or debates about human rights in a globalized world. These are all rooted in philosophical principles.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
That's what I love about these deep dives. You start to see these connections everywhere.
Yeah. It really highlights how much these big questions, they resonated across cultures and throughout history.
Right. It's not just a Western thing.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
Speaking of which, who were some of the philosophical heavy hitters? Like the ones we really should know about?
Yeah.
I've always pictured philosophers as these solitary figures, pondering the universe from their armchairs. Right, right.
But were there any philosophical rock stars? People who really shook things up back then?
Oh, absolutely. Ancient Greece, they gave us some all-time greats. We're talking like Socrates,
Yeah.
Plato, his student, and then Aristotle, who was actually Plato's student. So, they were
They were the dream team.
the original dream team.
Yeah.
They tackled everything from, the ideal society to the nature of reality itself.
It's wild to think how their ideas, still echo through history all these centuries later.
It really is. Take Aristotle, for example. He wasn't just a big picture thinker. He was also a meticulous observer of the world. Like,
Yeah.
he developed this whole system of logic that we still use today to, build arguments and analyze information.
Oh, wow.
It's like he laid the groundwork for critical thinking itself.
That's incredible. But you mentioned ancient Greece. Weren't there other cultures exploring these questions too?
Absolutely. And each tradition, brought its own unique flavor to the philosophical table. For instance, in Arabic Persian philosophy, there's this fascinating focus on the relationship between reason and revelation,
Oh, interesting.
especially within, Islamic thought.
So trying to find a harmony between faith and logic.
Exactly.
Ah.
One of the big names in that realm was Avicenna, just a brilliant scholar who tried to create a system for understanding reality that encompassed both science and religious beliefs.
Wow.
He even proposed this idea that the soul is essentially immaterial and separate from the body, which had a huge influence on later philosophers.
Wow, talk about a mind-bending concept that makes me think. What about other traditions, like Indian philosophy? I admit, I don't know much about it.
Indian philosophy is rich and incredibly diverse. often weaving together the pursuit of wisdom with spiritual enlightenment.
Interesting.
Take Adi Shankara, for instance. He championed this idea called Advaita Vedanta, which
Mhm.
argues that everything in the universe is ultimately one. Like all the differences we see around us are just illusions. And deep down, we're all connected to this single ultimate reality.
Whoa, okay, that's a whole new level of interconnectedness. So in Indian philosophy, seeking wisdom is also about this deep spiritual journey.
Precisely.
Wow.
And then we have Chinese philosophy, which tends to be very practical, focused on ethical behavior, good governance, and personal growth.
So less about abstract metaphysics and more about living a good life, being a good person.
God.
Okay.
Confucius, probably the most famous Chinese philosopher, he emphasized virtues like benevolence, righteousness, trustworthiness as keys to social harmony.
Right.
His teachings had a profound impact on Chinese society for centuries.
It's amazing how all these diverse traditions,
Yeah.
separated by time and geography, they all grappled with these same fundamental human questions.
It really speaks to our shared curiosity, that urge to understand ourselves and the world around us.
For sure. It's mind-blowing to think about all these traditions and big ideas floating around for centuries, but you know what I'm really curious about?
What's that?
How they actually shapes the world we live in today. I mean, it's
Hmm.
not like we're all walking around quoting Plato in our everyday lives.
Right.
So how did these ideas actually, trickle down and impact us now?
That's the thing about philosophy. It often works behind the scenes. It shapes our assumptions, our values, even our very systems of thought.
Okay.
Think about the foundations of democracy,
Yeah.
ideas about human rights, even our understanding of science. These have all been influenced by centuries of philosophical debate.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like philosophy provides the building blocks for so much of what we take for granted.
Exactly. For example, the concept of natural rights, which is central to many modern legal systems, has its roots in the work of philosophers like John Locke.
Okay.
He argued that humans are born with these inherent rights to life, liberty, and property ideas that fueled revolutions and inspired the founders of new nations.
Wow, so those late-night dorm room debates about natural rights actually have a direct line back to these philosophical heavy hitters?
They do.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's all connected.
But what about something like artificial intelligence?
Yes.
I mean, that's like cutting-edge technology.
Yeah.
But isn't there a philosophical side to that too?
Absolutely. AI is a prime example of how philosophy remains incredibly relevant today.
Okay.
As we develop machines that can learn, solve problems, even mimic human conversation, we're forced to confront all sorts of philosophical questions.
what?
What does it actually mean to be intelligent?
Right.
Do machines have consciousness? What are the ethical implications of creating entities that might someday surpass our own abilities?
It's almost like science fiction has become philosophy in action.
In a way, it has. And it's
Yeah.
not just AI. Philosophical questions underpin debates about bioethics, climate change, even the nature of reality itself in the age of simulations and virtual worlds.
So as much as we might try to separate philosophy
Right.
into its own neat little box, it's really woven into the fabric of our lives.
It is.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. Who knew that exploring these, ancient ideas could be so relevant to our lives today?
That's the beauty of philosophy. It has a way of sneaking up on you, making you see the world with fresh eyes and question everything you thought you knew.
It definitely makes you think. So next time someone says philosophy, I hope you remember, it's not just abstract thinking. It's a living, breathing force that shapes our world in countless, often invisible ways.
And the best part is, the conversation never really ends. Every generation gets to wrestle with these big questions anew, adding their own perspectives and insights to this ongoing dialogue.
That's a good point. Well, we've dipped our toes into the vast ocean of philosophical thought here. What big question resonates most with you? What would you want to explore further in your own deep dive? Until next time, keep those philosophical wheels turning.